I've been working with leaders and teams for over 25 years. And for most of that time, I have been a committed believer that when people understand and operate from their strengths, everything gets better. Teams click, leaders lead with confidence, work feels more meaningful. I still believe that, but something kept bothering me. I kept working with organizations where people knew their strengths. They'd done the Clifton Strengths Assessment with me. They'd been to the workshop. They could even tell you their top 5. But sometimes things still weren't working. Sometimes there was still confusion about priorities. People still felt disconnected from their managers, and commitment was inconsistent at best. So I had to ask myself, what is missing here? What I found is that strengths awareness is a starting point, but it is not a destination. It's not the final destination. You can know exactly what you're good at and still be operating in an environment where clarity is so low that you're constantly guessing, or connection is so weak that you don't feel safe enough to actually bring your best to the table. That's what led me to the framework that I now build all of my work around. Clarity times connection equals commitment. Not clarity plus connection, times multiplied. Because these things don't just add together, but they actually multiply. When both are present, that's when you get genuine commitment. Not people doing the minimum to avoid consequences, but people who are fully and actually invested. And when one is missing, even a great team underperforms. Even terrific individual contributors can still underperform. So in this video, I want to walk you through this framework, what each piece actually means in practice, and how to start diagnosing where your team and your organization might possibly have a gap that needs to be filled. Now, if you've been following me for a while, some of this stuff sounds familiar. Think of this as the foundation that everything else I teach is built on. And if you're new here, welcome. This is a great video to start with. Let's start by talking about Margaret. Margaret is a leader that I worked with. She knew her team's strengths, but she wasn't getting the results she wanted. And she came to me. We had worked together about a year before. We'd done a retreat, we'd done strengths. She came back and she said, Carol, that was great. I think we learned some things, but it wasn't really the silver bullet that I thought it was going to be. Do you think we should do DISC this year? Like maybe that's the thing that will finally be the magic bullet. Now, I'll pause here and say she didn't actually call it the magic bullet, but that's what I heard in my head. The problem is she didn't need more assessment data. She didn't need another tool in her tool belt. She needed different conditions to allow the strengths to convert into results. Just continuing to try new things wasn't going to change the environment that her people were living in. She really needed to evaluate what was missing, what was going on with clarity and connection. So let's walk through this framework of clarity times connection equals commitment. We start with clarity. Now, I've talked about connection in leadership for a long time, and I still think it's really important. We're going to talk about that next. But without clarity, connection falls short. Clarity is clear expectations, defined roles, understanding priorities, connecting your work to the vision and purpose of the organization, understanding what you're doing versus what somebody else is doing, understanding where you start and the leader ends, understanding who each person is and how they can best operate in their talents. Connection is the other piece of this, and connection is that relational trust, that feeling seen, known, and valued. It's strengths-aware leadership. It's the way a team really comes together and understands and supports each other. Either one of these by themselves can leave a team lopsided. But when you have both of them, when clarity multiplies connection, you end up with commitment. And when I talk about commitment, I am not talking about compliance, And I'm not talking simply about engagement. I'm talking about complete ownership and full engagement. People who own the work, who are committed to the organization, who don't want to leave this team or this leader because they feel like their work is so important and they are such a valuable part of the team. That requires both clarity and connection. You can't have one without the other. Both are required. Think about your team for a minute, or the organization that you're a part of, the organization that you lead, perhaps a team that you work with. I want to give you two diagnostic questions that I want you to use to help think about clarity and connection. First, how would your team score the clarity of their priorities right now on a scale from 1 to 10? If you asked each person on the team, how clear are you on the priorities? Do you know what to work on first during the day? Do you know what you can let slide this week? What would they say 1 to 10? I'm going to give you a hint here. You probably don't know without asking them. So I would really encourage you to ask them the question, how clear do you feel on the priorities? Ask them some of those questions and see what you find out. The second piece is, do the people you lead feel genuinely known by you and not just managed? Do they feel like you are connected to them and know who they are? Again, if you're not absolutely sure about the answer to this question, ask your people. How connected do you feel at work to me and to the rest of your team? Do you feel known in this job? Some of these questions will give you a lot of information, maybe more than you wanted to know. When you know the answer to this question, you can really begin to think about, what do I need to do to build this team to have the highest commitment possible? And strengths is going to be a big part of that. Strengths helps with both clarity and connection, but you need to know which piece is missing the most, where you need to put the most effort first. So in the next few videos, I'm going to unpack this framework in practice. We're going to talk specific stories for managers, for teams, and for organizations to help you really think about, how do you build something that truly lasts. The other preview I want to give you is, this framework is going to be part of a book that is coming out hopefully towards the end of this year. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, down below there'll be a link if you want to get on a waiting list for the book. I'd also love it if in the comments below you would comment with your biggest clarity or commitment challenge. When you listen to this, when you thought about diagnosing your team, what was the biggest challenge that you noticed that you need to deal with next in your team? Tell me more, and if there's a way I can help you, never hesitate to reach out. I'll have